Welcome to another edition of Scheffy's Sandbox. I'm your host, April Dawn Scheffler. This episode is going to be different. It's going to be fun. I did this last year for my birthday, and I enjoyed it so much that I decided to maybe do it every year for my birthday. But what it was is I found a solar return chart reader who was willing to have me share their reading with my podcast listeners and watchers, and I don't listen to it ahead of time. That's one of the ways I get to surprise or gift myself with this podcast and make it fun for me, is just to have it as a surprise. So I record the intro, I will just add their file, and then I get to sit back and watch the rest of it right along with you. So I'm really excited. I checked back in with Spirit Sis, who did my solar return chart reading last year. And she has gone to a PDF platform or version for her readings. And that just kind of confirmed what I had wanted to do, would be to maybe get someone different every year. Just again, so that you guys have an idea of different people's style and energy. Maybe you will want to order your own solar return reading. And it was really neat. As I had been approaching my birthday, I decided to go back and listen to the Spirit Sis solar return reading. And oh my gosh, I found myself wishing I had maybe listened a little bit more frequently, because all of the encouragements that she was saying were things that I really needed. I could have used. And I think I did learn a lot of those lessons last year, and they were just confirmed, right? When I had my birthday last year, I had not yet been introduced to the Energy Tribe. Gabrielle Ginter, host of the My Leap of Faith podcast, she had a group of women who had listened to the podcast and were wanting that sense of community. They had all come together, and I was not part of that yet. So I felt desperate for friendship and connection. That really wasn't something that was true for me at that time of my birthday. And when I listened to Spirit Sis talk about how it was all about calling in community, part of me was like, I feel like I've been calling in community for a long time now. It's something that my heart aches for. I'm not quite sure that it's ever going to really materialize. I don't see how that could happen. But yeah, sure enough, I don't think it was even a month later it wasn't. It was maybe 3 weeks later that I had my first Zoom meeting with the Energy Tribe and got my first introduction to some really lovely people. And that has sparked some, I think, what are going to be lifelong friendships, some really deep soul connections. So I am so thankful for that. And then another big theme from Spirit Sis's reading was that it was going to be about boundaries. Okay, well, that also ended up becoming very true. At my birthday party, I had announced to the guests that were there that I was moving. I was going to be moving in with my father-in-law to help him. And shortly thereafter, I had an Akashic record reading with Lorena Espiga. And it was all about boundaries as well. So I'm like, wow, okay, there's something I'm not listening to. And it was just shown to me during that reading, wow, what if I'm doing this move to like sacrifice myself to do these things, to swoop in and be savior, when actually no one needs or is asking me to do those things. It was like, wow, how many other times have I done that in my life where I saw that there was a need for something, and then I swooped in thinking I could do that. I could be the one to save the day and help. And I realized during that reading that even if I were to do that, it might not be received or even acknowledged or appreciated for what it was, at least at that time. So I did a 180 and people were expecting me to move because I had been so sure about it and announced it to everyone at my birthday party. But yeah, I did a 180 and I was like, you know what? I am staying here. Staying in my home and I'm going to let my kiddo continue to do all of her extracurricular activities, stay at her school and all of those things until maybe such a time comes up where we really are needed at this other place. But in the meantime, I'm not going to swoop in and try to crucify myself when it might not even be energetically received or appreciated for what I thought I was doing. So anyway, yes, I feel like those have been some huge things. Community, I called in some really great friends. Thank you, universe. And then also the whole bit about boundaries. I feel as though I don't have that perfected, but definitely further along than I was. So I am excited to listen along with you guys to see what the heck is in store for me for some 41. And let's see what happens between now and summer of next year. So maybe I'll actually listen to it more often than I did last year's reading to keep myself a little bit more on track maybe, or focused, or okay, this is the lesson that I'm trying to extract from this, and maybe have it land a little bit deeper, quicker, etc. All the things. So I hope, because it is my solar return reading, that it's not terribly boring for you. But I just wanted to encourage you, if you are interested, reach out to any of the people who have done readings for me on the podcast before and ask them for your own. And if you would, reach out to me and tell me anecdotes about how things that were not predicted, but that were showing up in your solar return reading, how that actually manifested. I would love to hear that. And if you would be willing to share that on the podcast, maybe we can have a whole solar return testimonial episode. Go to my website, aprillific.com, and there should be a little thing to click on in the upper right-hand corner that says microphone or speak pipe. Click on that, record your story, and I would love to share that with everyone. Or if you want it just from my ears only, I would still really enjoy listening to the synchronicities, which I think are the language of love. The universe's language of love. Absolutely. So anyway, thank you so much for listening. And I hope we have another great trip around the sun together. And a special thanks to Fire Moon Transformations on YouTube for allowing me to share this reading with you all.
Hi April, and welcome to your solar return reading. Thank you so much for booking this with me. I'm really grateful and I'm super excited to get into everything here. So the way that this reading is going to go is I will first take a look at your natal chart. So just your overall birth chart, and I will give you a sort of quick overview of this just because it is way more helpful to have this as a sort of background before we get into the solar return. Then we will look at your actual solar return, and I will calculate this using two different methods, perfections as well as just the snapshot of the sky around your birthday this year or on your birthday this year. And then we will dig into some of these cards here, which are just meant to further clarify and explain the energies that are showing up in the astrology. So without further ado, let's get started. So I'm sure you know a little bit about astrology already, as so many of us do these days. So if you know anything, I'm sure you know about your sun sign, which is in Cancer. But in astrology, there are so many elements besides just that. So there are thousands of ways of looking at a chart, and they have changed over the centuries. They're different according to each culture. I'm going to use the methods that I'm most familiar with and that I'm most intuitively guided to use for your chart. So even down to the division of the houses, that's something that every astrologer must make a critical decision about. So I am just going to use one of the most obvious ones that I always tend to use, which is Placidus. I always look at Koch as well as whole house or whole sign divisions for the houses. And basically these different ways of calculating things tell us kind of the same thing, but just in different ways. But I find that for personal readings, Placidus is really good. And for stuff like predictions in the future, I do find, yes, whole sign housing systems as well as Koch are really good. But in any case, I won't go through all of the details and the mechanics, but do let me know if you're interested. I love talking about the actual stuff behind the astrology because it's very interesting, and nothing is ever applied in a vacuum. So including, of course, your sun sign or any other element of your chart. So one thing that's really important in a chart, and every single one, which has remained which many have believed this to be the case for a long time, since, a second century or so, is the ascendant, because it actually determines your immediate presence in the world, how you affect people firsthand, but also how you're affected by the world. It represents your coming into the world, you're coming into being, basically into physical form. So it literally captures the snapshot of you coming into the world. That's why birth time is so important in your chart. And it also determines what every single house in your chart is going to be ruled by, what sign it's in, and also where the planets fall, which is also a really important thing. So for example, Cancer Sun is not just a Cancer Sun, but you have yours in the 8th house, which we'll talk about in just a second. So overall, your chart places a lot of emphasis on the southern hemisphere as well as the 3rd and 4th quadrant. So this tells me that you are someone who is very invested in relationships and in finding a way to relate to the world around you in a very significant way, not just personally, but also when it comes to your legacy and when it comes to the way that you impact the world. So you want to make a lasting change in the world around you, and you want to connect with your community or communities in a way that's very soul-based, and that is just simply deep and powerful. So this could go in very many different ways, but that's just a sort of general overview of where your chart's emphasis is. And let me just double check here. I have like 3 different versions of your chart laid out here, so I just have to move them around. So you do have also a bucket shape. So you are very goal-oriented and extremely determined, and many aspects of your chart already talk about that, like the fact that you have a lot of emphasis on cardinal as well as fixed energy. Actually, you have mostly fixed, and then second most important modality for you is the cardinal. So 7 fixed, 6 cardinal. So this makes you someone who is very capable of standing your ground, also of creating change, of being a leader, of just being very goal oriented. And once you set your mind to something, you're not going to give up very easily, and you're not afraid of working hard. In fact, that is one thing that really stands out about you, even though you have a way that's perhaps unconventional or quick moving, and you don't want to stay on one task too long. It's not because you don't have resilience, it's because you want to get stuff done really quickly, so you can look at the big picture and find the way that everything connects to that, question of like, what is most significant? What am I creating that actually impacts the world, that creates hopefully positive change, and that makes the world a better place, or at the very least that leaves some sort of mark on the world. So you are in this bucket shape. Your focus is going to be the moon, and your moon is in Taurus, which is beautiful because it's an exalted placement. So basically what this means is that your moon just is very comfortable there. So Taurus moons tend to be incredibly talented at working with materials and working with what they have available around them. So they're going to turn whatever resources they have, they're going to sort of multiply them. They're going to create more abundance out of that. And they're also going to be able to establish really firm foundations with what exists around them. your Chiron, and this is where I'm going to start jumping around a little bit, which is the asteroid that's called the Wounded Healer, is also in Taurus though, and that indicates basically sort of the point in your life or in your soul's journey that you feel the most kind of, yeah, I mean, not just wounded, but potentially triggered by. And that's also in Taurus, which basically the one sentence summary of that is that you have some sort of belief deep down, some sort of limiting belief that you can't create abundance or that you can't have everything that you need. This might also indicate some sort of experience with poverty or with just not having enough that then you approach either through overcompensating for it later on or by continuing on to hold on to that belief that you don't have enough. But again, your Taurus, your moon is in Taurus, which is one of the most powerful placements that indicates just really good luck with resources, with materials. And you're never going to actually be lacking in what you need to create this change that you want to make. You're always going to have that available to you. So it's just a matter of maintaining a mentality that's not self-defeating. So the moon in the 7th house as this focus point of your bold pattern, which, you know, makes you pretty determined and very, just very capable of knowing what you should be striving towards in this life, is going to be in the 7th house. So that's a further reason why I think that this chart for you represents a really big emphasis on relationships. So there are many different types of relationships, of course, but I always use astrology cards for the solar returns, and it's actually pretty crazy that almost every single time I use these cards, the cards that come out are the ones that represent the things in the chart that I already think are the most important. So it's great to have the 7th house represented here in the cards at the very middle. So this says profound relationships, intimacy, and romantic partnerships. These are the cards for your solar return, still talking about your birth chart, but in general, this year is going to be very significant for you in the way that it brings up the themes that are some of the most important themes in your chart overall. So I usually give this as a sort of disclaimer at the beginning, but sort of blind chart readings are a little bit tricky because, you know, you don't know anything about the person you're reading for, anything about their culture, anything about sort of their belief systems and like their relationship status, things of this sort, you know, the sort of difficulties that they've experienced in life, what kind of points you shouldn't talk about as much. So I try to be as you know, critical in my analysis as possible in a way that's empathetic and that doesn't hit on anything that's too difficult. And also just, you know, if I were doing this and asking you what you're trying to look for this year, it would be more easy in a way, but there's still some themes that nevertheless come up that can't be ignored. So yes, relationships is a big one for you this year. And the 7th house is not just the house of romantic connections, but just basically of any significant, impactful connection that you're going to have in this lifetime, whether that is with other types of partners like business partners or creative partners, or even coworkers. Of course, family could be involved, siblings could be involved, but usually it is some sort of contractual connection. So that's why marriage and business are the ones that are most associated with the 7th house. So in any case, having, let me just look. Yeah, having, did I say that your moon was in the 7th house? Because I lied about that. It's in the 6th house, but your Chiron is in the 7th house. So this whole theme about abundance that we've already kind of talked about relates in some sort of way to relationships. Like the way I'm seeing it in your chart is that sometimes you might feel that like you have to steer clear of connections that are not aligned to your ambitions, your goals, and your soul purpose, because they're sort of draining you, they're disempowering you, they're not, whatever doesn't align to that incredible determination that you have is gonna go because it's less important for you. So at the same time, this might indicate that you could potentially attract people who want to rely on you for some sort of stable foundation or for income even, as well as for your generosity in general. But there's a way to, of course, balance all of these things. And that is, I think, through your, well, putting up really clear boundaries. So now we can talk about your ascendant a little bit, which is in Scorpio. So yes, you have a lot of air in your chart, so 5 elements, but you still have most of your planets in water signs, or rather they're going to be in water. So Scorpio ascendant to an already Cancer sun in the 8th house. So the 8th house, in at least one system of astrology, but several I think, is associated with Scorpio. So I don't always use sign to house equations, but in this case I think it's important because your ascendant is also Scorpio. So the 8th house is one of the most elusive houses of astrology. It's one of the most hidden. The water houses 4, 8, and 12 are considered the darkest because water and earth are dark elements, as you know, fire and air are going to be light elements. So anything that's going to be in a water house is going to be a little bit mysterious, a little bit mystical, a little bit elusive. So Cancer sun is cardinal water. So despite being incredibly having a deep capacity for emotional just capability in general, and for resilience, and for just depth of feeling and sentiment, which is one of the things you might hear about Cancers. You know, in pop astrology, they're kind of known as the crybabies. I rebel against that. I myself am a Cancer sun. I do not associate with that anyway, but you are very empathetic already as a Cancer sun, and in the 8th house, that makes you understand not just individuals, but also like the karma that they all carry and the reason why they are acting a certain way or saying something. So it makes you incredibly empathic, and just you're capable of understanding where everyone is coming from, to a point that is almost psychic. So Scorpio ascendant, Cancer sun in the 8th house, your Mercury there with you in the 8th house. Any Mercury placement in a water house, and yours is going to be in retrograde, which makes you, despite being in its rulership in Gemini, which makes you a very powerful communicator, but hold on with me for just a second, because it makes you very good with words actually. You're very smart, you're capable of learning about anything, understanding anything, but at the same time Mercury is retrograde in your chart, which means that you approach learning, you approach expression, communication, you work with words in a way that's a little bit either eccentric or just idiosyncratic. Sorry, it's very unique to you and your own style. So you might find yourself actually that you can't find the right words a lot of the time. But once you sort of reflect on an idea or a topic or what you're trying to communicate or who you're trying to talk to, once you sort of like absorb the energy of that moment or that conversation or that relationship or that idea, like inwardly in this sort of psychic kind of way, then you can be as clear and as powerful in your communication style as possible, even more so than those people who don't have Mercury retrograde in their chart, who just have a direct placement. So with that said, you also could quite literally be into something that's pretty mystical, or at the very least like spiritual in some sort of way. You could be. A lot of things in your chart signify this, including your North Node in the 9th house and Venus hanging out there as well, Mercury in the 8th with the Sun, and Jupiter and Saturn together in the 11th signify some sort of potential for a career in leading others, like spiritually, or in a way where you have some sort of position of power in a higher institution, whether of like spirituality, learning, or even politics. So in any case, the other thing that could be the case with that 8th house Sun and Mercury and Mars, that is that you are just very psychically tuned, very talented, very intuitive. You could even be an astrologer. People who have the Sun in the 8th house, they tend to go for career paths that are a little bit more mystical, or for things, and this is where the other sort of meaning of the 8th house comes in, which is all about shared resources, other people's money, taxes. It's sort of, I colloquially refer to it as the sex, death, and taxes house. It's also a little bit associated with transformation and things that are hidden and potentially destabilizing in your life, so that you learn a higher purpose. So yes, 8th house suns they feel like they have a very heavy kind of purpose or just task in this lifetime, and might sometimes be faced with lots of trials, or at the very least be surrounded by some sort of significant element at some point in their life that changes either their value system or the way that they relate to the world. So yeah, the other thing besides just being potentially attuned to mystical energies and careers is that you are very good actually at working with finances. This is further underscored by that Taurus moon and Chiron as well. And with this also brings up the idea of what you get from relationships. So on one side, whoever doesn't align to your purpose and to the significant kind of tasks that you feel you have been given in this lifetime is going to go, and you're not going to be engaging in those connections and those relationships. But at the same time, I can also see a lot of potential for like deep, powerful, basically like power couple connections and relationships. So it would be really possible and very nice and healing and fulfilling for you to create something like with your partner, like with your life partner, for example, like a business or some sort of, or just anything to collaborate with them in some sort of way. Because the 8th house also shares like the stuff that results from the 7th house, from contractual relationships and their resources. It's like, you know, things that result from marriage or from other contracts. So the 8th house in that sense is also a very karmic house, because it talks about at the highest level your karmic lineage and all of the stuff that comes from that. So 8th house sons might sometimes feel like they have to carry a really heavy burden in connection with their family or with their lineage, or there's some sort of thing that you're meant to transmute at the higher level, at your higher self's level, basically in this lifetime, to learn how to rewrite that story of your, literally your family, your ancestry, something like that, or to sometimes end some sort of cycle, some sort of karmic cycle that's depleting or that's unnecessarily heavy, in order to create some new legacy and to establish some sort of new foundation of values and of realities too. And your Mars is there, so that means that you're very attuned to this, and you can tell basically on a psychic level that you have some sort of purpose that relates to this in your life. And sometimes you're not exactly sure how to express what you feel you must do in this lifetime, but it feels significant somehow. I keep coming back to that. And Jupiter and Saturn together in the same sign of Libra in the 11th house. So whenever I see a conjunction between Saturn and Jupiter, these are the planets of Saturn is the planet of restriction, of karma, and we've been talking a lot about karma already. It's about limitations, it's about balance, it's about positive restrictions, healthy restrictions, putting up boundaries, and that's what we kind of talked about before. So keeping up, especially because I was going to mention your Scorpio ascendant makes you very absorptive of people's energies. Anyone who has important Scorpio placements is going to be a really good observer, but at the same time, they're always going to be somehow like taking on the energy of those around them, because they have a task to transmute that energy. Like any big Scorpio placement is going to be transmuting something, basically absorbing some sort of energy and then transforming it into something else in this life, whether that is people's emotions, so being a healer, being a psychic, being some sort of like therapist, something like that, or working towards the betterment of the world. That's coming up once again, is something very indicated for you. But knowing how to put up boundaries is also very important. And going back to that conjunction between Saturn and Jupiter, so Saturn as that planet of boundaries, and then Jupiter as the opposite energy of expansion, of growth, of exploration, of learning about things beyond your immediate confines and home basically, and so on and so forth. It's the planet of spirituality. It rules Sag and Pisces, so it's about wholeness, the big picture, things of this sort, which you're also very interested in, and you're not very keen on working towards things that don't add up to that big picture in your life, whether it's for someone else or for yourself. But in any case, them together in the same sign means that's actually really good, because they're working together to sort of keep you very balanced. So it's like cautious optimism is a kind of phrase that comes up, as well as just knowing how much it takes to accomplish something. Like if you have a dream or a goal, you know that you're not just going to daydream about it. You're not just going to have some sort of skewed idea of how much work is required. You're going to be very, you're going to understand very deeply just how much it's going to take to accomplish that. Because if Jupiter, for example, was like let to roam free and it was, you know, exalted and going all over the place and going crazy, it might have some sort of heightened or untrue idea about its capabilities. But Saturn always keeps you grounded, keeps you very rooted and being exalted in Libra for you, that keeps your Jupiter in check. So it doesn't mean that you don't dream or you don't allow yourself to dream, although that could be the case sometimes because you're very realistic, but you're also capable of knowing what dreams are feasible in that very moment, or what's necessary for you to do in order to be able to accomplish the things you want. So going back to the Scorpio ascendant, now you have Uranus in the first house, which any of the outer planets are going to be mostly generational, so they're not going to impact your personality that significantly. But because it is in the first house of immediate presence, like what type of energy you send out into the world, like literally right next to you, like how you impact people directly when you're in the world, this is a destabilizing force. And combined with the Scorpio energy, basically this makes you some sort of like karmic mirror to people. You trigger people so that they heal. You act as a sort of mirror of truth for the energy that they're sending out. So you absorb energy, but then you also send it back out so that people know what they're coming across as, so that they can change that and see themselves better, basically. So that's why you would really make a really good therapist, I think, or someone who helps people in any sort of way, because you're not just able to help heal people, but you're able to give them like the tools they need in order to succeed at what they're trying to do, or to know how to also sustain their own like healthy connection to themselves, and to like have basically tools that they can use forever in order to help sustain themselves, whether emotionally or in other ways as well. So now I can talk a little bit, last thing here, because we're going to go into your solar return. I'm not going to do a full birth chart reading, kind of the beyond the scope of this reading. And actually for 1 second, let me just turn on the light in the room. It's getting kind of dark. So the nodes are not planets, but they are mathematical points on the axis of the sun. So they're the points where the moon crosses that axis, and they signify your purpose in this life. So the axis of your purpose. And I say axis because the north is always going to be in the sign opposite of the south, as well as the house that's opposite of the south. So Scorpio ascendants, most of them, unless you have intercepted houses, have 10th house in Leo, which means that you could be famous for what you're doing, for your job. The 10th house is about legacy. It's about not just your immediate presence in the world, like your ascendant, but how people put labels on you and how your legacy literally unfolds, which is a very important topic for you. So being in Leo, Leo is ruled by the sun. So having literally sunlight in your 10th house, which is already the most visible, just heightens that further. So it makes you very, you can definitely be very well known for something, and again, like very impactful presence in the world. And to go with that, your north node is also in Leo. So the south node represents the point that is most like associate, or well, how do I put this? Okay, so it's what you come into this world with as your sort of comfort zone. So it's an inherent talent, it's an inherent sort of point of comfort. It's your comfort zone to some degree, but it's also just all the skills that you've mastered in a previous life, if you believe in that sort of thing, or just in the astral plane or whatever. But it's just the kind of energy that you excel at sort of automatically in the world, that you're really good at. And that being an Aquarius, that just brings up more of that theme of being an activist, being a humanitarian of some sort, being geared towards helping others, also being into politics, once again indicated. This means that you're very good at doing all of that and it comes naturally to you, but what you should do is embrace more of the north node, which is going to be opposite in the sign of Leo. So if Aquarius is collectives and communities, and we know that that's important to you, Leo is the individual. It's about your, and I love that for your purpose this year. The card Pride came up, which I really associate with Leo, and it says, I love myself and I see myself in everyone. And I think that's a really good, summary of the North Node in Leo, which basically means that it is your purpose to be known for who you are, not just for what you do, but for your own actual energy, for whatever is most native about your being, your personality, just the beauty of you, not just what you create. So being close to Venus in the 9th house, so North Node in the 9th house could have something to do with spirituality or with higher learning. So you could be a teacher of some kind as well. You could also be a performer or an artist because Venus is there very close by in Cancer, which makes you someone who's very idealistic, very romantic, or very, but not in a sort of fuzzy or cute way, but you just have, first of all, you have a really good heart. We've already established that, very empathetic, so many things in this chart that indicate that, but also extremely strong and resilient and capable within that empathy and compassion. But also just, yeah, Venus in Cancer could be very good with like very creative in general in many different ways. But conjunct the North Node, that means that, yeah, you're meant to be seen literally for your own beauty as well, not just for what you do for others. Basically, that's the kind of summary of that. Okay, so that's kind of your birth chart in quick summary, or not so quick because it's already 26 minutes in. So now let's talk about your solar return. So the first way to calculate this is you look at the house that's being activated that year based on the perfection calculation. So starting with your first year on this earth, your first house is going to be activated, and then each subsequent house is going to come up as the one that's like of greater emphasis that year. So right now you're in a sixth house perfection, which means that so your sixth house is in Aries, which means that basically your ruling planet or your teacher this year, your sort of astrological teacher, is going to be Mars, which rules Aries. And again, I love that this happened because Mars came up here in the cards. So move forward and defend self. And there are a lot of cards. Mars is the planet of action, of work, of impulses and desires as well to some degree, some associated with sexuality as well. Although for me, it's a little bit more general than that. Like that would be more the combination of Venus, Mars, and Moon. But it's all about your own experience of forward movement in this life and how you create change, how you make things happen, basically. So having a Mars year means that you're going to be feeling more determined than usual. You're going to be feeling sort of pressured as well, potentially, to create what you think you should. And it might feel sometimes that you are behind, or that you didn't accomplish something that you wanted and you're sort of rushing to get it done. Or there's some sort of change happening in your life that feels a little bit destabilizing and you're trying to keep it together a little bit. Also, another thing about Mars is it is the smaller or the lesser malefic. Saturn is the malefic, which means, kind of like not negative energy, but, we talked about that restriction. So Mars is kind of like the mini version of that, although very different energies. It's volatile, it's fiery, it wants to get things done, it wants to have its way. So on one level, you feel that you must do something for yourself this year, that you have to focus a little bit more on what you want, on your own desires and what makes you feel nurtured and taken care of, and what makes you feel safe to some degree. But at the same time, there's a lot of pressure around you right now. And when I was flipping the cards, and I don't know if I should mention this now, but I will, I guess, because I started saying it. A lot of these cards came up like flipped somehow, and they kept like spinning around a little bit. So for some reason I got this kind of psychic message or just image of like a mirror image that's not true. I don't know why that's coming up. Some sort of reflection that brings you a kind of message that's a little bit enigmatic or mysterious. It's almost like things around you seem like to be spinning or to be changing in a way that's like opposite of what you want, but then the next day it feels like your path is aligned, but then at the same time it feels like it's moving in the completely wrong direction. So something here about unclear mirrors and reflection in general. Like you might be reflecting on some choice, whether to move forward in some sort of way. A lot on that. We got the Six of Swords twice, and the Seven of Wands, sorry. And this talks about moving on in a different direction. But yeah, about that mirror, I don't know, I didn't explain that really clearly. I do have Mercury in Cancer, so sometimes I'm weird with my words, but anyway. So Mars, being ruled by Mars, you might feel forced or basically pushed by some sort of energy around you, whether that's people around you, the circumstances that are unfolding in this potentially kind of unclear or confusing way around you, or your own sort of like inner voice that is nagging at you. You must do this, you must create this change, you must make something happen now. Like it's a very insistent energy that I'm getting for some reason. And like Mars years can unfold in many different ways, but for you, that's what I'm getting. And we can talk about the cards just because it makes sense. So Mars came up with, literally, it says defend yourself, and it's crazy. We got the Seven of Wands, which is all about defending yourself. So in the Rider-Waite Tarot, you see a person with a big stick hitting someone or fighting people with 6 smaller sticks, right? So that's literally the energy of defense, of delineating boundaries. So one thing that could be coming up for you is being forced to put up clearer boundaries this year in relationships in general, but also even with your close connections. And you might feel like, yeah, this is what I'm feeling, like you want to be like you want to establish your ground somehow, like you want to do something that is significant to you, and you want to be respected for it. You want to be known. You want to, it's almost like you feel like you have to justify yourself constantly this year, or that you have to like translate the worth of what you're doing, like to explain to others why you're doing something. Like even like if someone is like attacking your like expertise or your credentials or something like that, like you feel like you must speak up and defend yourself against any like unfair or untrue accusations. Or something is coming up here about competition as well, and people wanting to either steal your spotlight or basically like do that thing that people could potentially do with you, which is to kind of, like ride in the boat with you, the boat of your success, even though they haven't contributed anything towards that, or they haven't actually supported you or helped you out. With the Six of Swords, this is about moving on, and it came out twice. Once with the Mars energy, this thing of self-defense and feeling pressured to do something, to move forward in a different way. And with the seventh house, which we already talked about, which is that of relationships. And to really further clarify that, we got one of the most obvious 7th house kind of cards, which is the Two of Cups, which actually is represented by Venus in Cancer, which you natively have. So that's really a nice sort of synchronicity there. But moving on from connections, relationships that are depleting to you, that where people are mooching off of you energetically, financially, in any other way, even where they're maybe trying to steal your ideas, because Six of Swords is about intellectual activity and energy. So people who are not honest with you as well, who are not carrying their weight, I'm feeling and sensing, just will kind of have to go. And I feel like you're struggling with releasing people, because again, you're very empathetic, and you're also you want, like when I said like you're romantic, you don't want people to not get along. Like you want to be on good terms with those you care about, or that you have cared about in the past. That's also very Cancerian trait, is not wanting to let go of even the connections that are the heaviest, the most difficult, because of those moments and those times when you did share something that was beautiful and loving and significant. So this might be bringing up some sort of moving away from a connection. It's nothing that you don't already know, so don't worry about it. If you're not already contemplating this, like even potentially like a divorce or something, or like rewriting a contract, more likely, whether that is like romantic partnership or business or any sort of other significant partnership, especially because we got, look at this, it's so crazy, like the astrology is just further explained by the cards. Conjunction, a union, merging and coming together. So that's what we talked about before, where you have a literal conjunction in your chart between Saturn and Jupiter. So maybe that's also very important. And the 11th house, and the 11th house is also that of friends. So that all that I'm talking about here could also refer to a friendship. So moving away from connections that maybe you've invested a lot in, but who are not able to come with you, basically, who are not able to join you in the new stage of your life purpose, life journey, in your own expansion and your own spiritual growth. So, but at the same time, there is this deep potential, and I saw this in your actual solar return chart. So now we're still talking about the perfection way of calculating the chart. I saw this in your return chart, where there's a deep possibility, very highly likely possibility, that you're going to run into someone who's just a very significant connection for you. And we get the Emperor, so this could be a masculine presence, this could be like a life partner, this could be literally like someone you get to marry if you're not already married, or if you are, this could also indicate a strengthening of that bond, because it says union, merging and coming together. So of course you take everything as it resonates, I hope that. But I feel like, there's one connection that's deepening for you, or you're coming into this connection, you're coming into being with this person and it's going to be so beautiful and fulfilling. And this is the card of wishes fulfilled, of not believing that it's too good to be true, but it is true, because we got the Emperor, which is major arcana, very significant, impossible to ignore. It's not like you're just creating this in your mind. So there's one connection that is coming together for you in a very beautiful, fulfilling way, but potentially like maybe this has to come in after you've eliminated some other connections that are depleting to you or that are not aligned with you. So what I'm really sensing is that this significant soulmate connection, and soulmates can be, they don't have to be romantic, they can be anything, is going to come to you once you choose to walk away, or not to walk away, just to move and to shift even in this new direction that's basically taking you on the next step of your journey. And once you do that, this significant connection is going to show up in a way that's so amazing and fulfilling and exciting. So this could be literally any kind of connection. I mean, we could clarify this, but we'll see what the solar return chart says more of. So now with the 6th house and well, a lot of things. I feel like I wish I could just like synthesize everything in one sentence, because it all connects here. But with the 6th house, this says establishing a foundation, health, daily life, and practical details. So remember, your 6th house is important too, because your moon is hanging out there. So there's some sort of reorientation or replanning when it comes to your resources. So you could literally like reinvest your money somehow, or recalculate like your resources, or change jobs. You might take a step back on something, because 2 of Wands is a card of planning and it's in reverse. You might take a step back on some path that you had basically decided on taking. This is something slightly smaller, but it does affect everything else. It's connected to everything else here. So this could have something to do with jobs or with health, basically. Making a choice in order to prioritize your health, like maybe switching jobs or locations, like maybe, not commuting to a job, or choosing a new one, not to do that for the sake of your health, because you also have 4 of Swords, and the 6th house is already that of health. But with the 4 of Swords, which is a card of resting and healing, and basically like kind of mending your heart in this deck, it's about, it comes obviously after the 3 of Swords, which is a pretty intense card of like heartbreak and disappointment. Not saying that that's necessarily the case. This is already the stage way past that. So there's something here that requires healing. You need a lot more time for reflection, especially because in a Mars year, you're going to be feeling so pushed around, so pressured to create change, to make things happen, to be productive, to assert yourself, to basically make a name for yourself, make an impact. Again, more of that energy. So all of this is happening because at the higher level, there is deep transformation happening for you right now. So we got fixed, and then we got death, which represents Scorpio in your chart. So the other thing I wanted to mention is that your actual chart signature is Scorpio. So you have mostly water and mostly fixed. So that water that is fixed is Scorpio. So that makes you very, you have a lot of the traits that are associated with Scorpio. So if you know a little bit about that, if you've always been told that you're just a Cancer, again, that is not how charts work. So lots of deep scorpionic energy. And we've already talked about how you're a healer, a transmuter of energy, things of this sort. So that's kind of Scorpio. Another thing that could be coming up with that is conceptions of sexuality and of the taboo, and of things that are just, again, mysterious, hidden, occult potentially, because your Mars is in the 8th house there together. So this could be brought up as well this year. So you might be literally getting into some new activity that draws upon these energies, like even tarot or something like that, or magic even, things of this sort, like exploring the unknown in a way that can help you figure yourself out better, or to understand yourself at a deeper level, because we do have also the 9 of Swords. So you might be feeling a little bit anxious or confused about this new direction you're going in, or just, again, might feel like you have so many responsibilities, things pointed at you, like there's a lot of pressure on your shoulders. This might, again, have to do with this 8th house of like legacy, karma, ancestry, things of this sort. So some of these themes could be coming up to be solved this year, or to be further reflected upon. So at the highest sort of soul level, there's deep, transformation happening this year. And with the Hierophant, I forgot to mention here, that's also what made me think of like contractual relationships and like redrawing contracts. This is a card that's associated with institutions of higher spirituality or like religion, things of the sort, but also just like marriage is a really big association with this card. But at the higher level, this is about your spiritual journey, your spiritual path. So who can go with you up this like spiritual ladder, basically? Who can you take with you, and who can you sustain in this like boat with you? Like, you know, not everyone can come in, the boat's going to topple over. So what are you going to how are you going to approach this complex sort of development in your life? So the card that well, I'll talk about that in just a second, but the card that represents sort of your, before we get into the solar return chart itself, that represents this theme of your year, even though we've already seen a lot here, is this one, Blue Bells. So I'm going to read from the guidebooks if I could find them. And there are 2 guidebooks. I'm just going to shuffle them without looking at them and pick the one that feels right. Okay, so it's this one. So I picked the Dusk guidebook of this Seed and Sickle deck. So 17, that might be an important number for you. But also it adds up to 8, the 8th house of your sun. And I feel like, yes, this year is very 8th house-like, which just means a big emphasis on transformation. So, okay, so it says, in Finland, bluebells were created by a fairy to help a group of mice, the flowers ringing their bells whenever a particularly hungry cat came near. You're a naturally independent person, and we already got that from your chart, or perhaps you've gone to lengths to make people think you're independent, but this can give the appearance that you don't need anyone at all. Now is a good time to ask for help if you need it. You may find someone is willing to go above and beyond to aid your situation. Okay, so yeah, I definitely got that sense of like you trying to do so much, like so many burdens are just on your shoulders, and maybe that is part of the solution, is to actually literally ask for assistance, for help, to ask someone to just take some of that load off, and in this process of like re-understanding yourself, reorienting yourself in your own purpose, you might find that you are a little bit like enclosed or self-defensive about this process, like that's coming up again, right? And like maybe you are being a little bit like, I don't want to say like harsh necessarily, because you're not sure exactly of what's happening, so you might feel like you have to keep this aspect of your life private, but at the same time it impacts every other area of your life. So yeah, of course, some people are not going to understand what you're going through. So be, discerning about that. But some might actually surprise you, and you can talk to some people about this, maybe more than you think you can. So, okay, let's see now. Let's look at the return chart. And then we'll go into the remaining cards that signify purpose here. So also, I forgot to mention with the yin here at the bottom of the astrology deck, intuition, trust, patience, spirituality, and receptivity. So this already brings up more of the same themes, but again, I really want to emphasize, like with every Mars year, it's important to get enough sleep. It's important to set aside that time for reflection, not like doom casting, but rather actual reflection. So if you find that, you are working constantly, and then the moments that you have free are just spent worrying about things, then try to carve out time for yourself where you have enough space. Like spaciousness is important this year, so that you don't feel like you're constantly like in a tunnel moving forward, so that in those free moments you're not just worrying or having anxiety, but actually are able to really truly rest. So, and hanging out with friends might be really healing and really nice. But again, whether things are changing for you in that department or not, I'm sure there's hopefully at least like a couple of friends who can really be healing, like nice, lovely, peaceful presences for you at this time. So let's look at the return chart, and I wrote down some things here as well. So, okay, yeah, things that further emphasize you potentially coming into some sort of new significant connection related to your soul purpose. So I forgot to, did I mention, let me just see, that I mentioned everything I wanted in your chart? Yeah. Also another theme with your specifically Venus and Gemini in the 8th house is freedom in sexuality potentially, or playfulness, things of this sort. So, and being yourself in that area, and being yourself, even if it's not in that specific area, like being yourself, free and like untethered in your expression of energy and ideas as well, because Gemini is always intellectual with those who are around you, so that you don't feel judged for your own particular just ideas and investments and Like, for example, like if, you know, you are interested in things that are occult or spiritually different or something like that, or just in spirituality in general, which is so emphasized for you, then it's important to find people who are not, who can be around you, who don't judge you for that, or who don't misunderstand you for that. So in any case, 8th house in your solar return, which has your north node, or not your north node, but the transiting north node, conjunct Uranus, which is like probably the most significant transit of the year. So this is going to be happening most potently from July 22nd to August 17th, is when we will have a triple conjunction in this sky, basically between the north node in Taurus, which actually squares your own north node in Leo. So that's a point of pressure there. So this is maybe one reason. Another reason why you might be asking yourself, like, what change you need to make in your life that aligns you even more closely to your purpose or to your legacy, or both. So yeah, the north node in Taurus, Uranus in Taurus, and Mars in Taurus is going to be a big one. And basically this signifies like huge potential for creating new things that are impactful, which is what you're interested in and what your own particular astrology is already sort of forcing you to do. Competitiveness might also be coming up around this time. Also, like creating things for the sake of being known or noticed in a way that's potentially harmful to yourself or to others. I'm not saying you're doing this, but this is like a general theme that's unfolding right now. Creating things that are very loud and very like destabilizing in a positive or also negative way, just to make that impact, but also just chance happenings in a, again, positive or negative way. But this, I think, for you, this would be something that you've been waiting for. So if there is that connection that you've been trying to manifest, maybe, because also 9 of Cups, it's about manifestation, or attempting to do that with something or someone or some type of connection. This is highly possible for you, especially this summer, but throughout the whole year, because your solar return chart is like the imprint, the blueprint for how your year is going to unfold. So this is just in addition to the calculation that we did where Mars is your like astrological teacher this year. So basically, like, it's about not just striving and trying so hard to create this change single-handedly, but basically like opening up yourself to the universe, trusting that it's, you know, benefic forces are working towards your good, so that you actually receive, like with this yin energy here, the things that you need, whether it's the connections that you need, the partnerships that you would need to complete a project, the sort of collaborative energies or resources that you would need in order to make that happen, so that you don't feel so strained and like you're like, you know, you're doing 1,000 things at the same time and you're like an octopus, like taking on every single role that you know, maybe it would take an entire team to create something and you're trying to do it by yourself. So allowing yourself to receive this thing that wants to come your way. And I think this is mostly indicated literally in love, business, and potentially career, but just in general, like some connection is going to come into your life this year. And we also have for your purpose this year, besides pride here, which is, you know, I love myself and I see myself in everyone. So maybe you're going to finally meet someone who mirrors your energy in a way that you've never felt before in any of these indicated areas. And this says fortune's wheel, luck and right timing. And when this card also came up, like kind of it was spinning around on the table, which, you know, makes me think of like a compass. Like you're not sure exactly where the direction is. Sometimes it feels like you're being spun around, like in that hall of mirrors maybe, and you're not sure whether the direction is this or that way. So sometimes it might feel like things are going in the wrong direction. With Uranus, it could feel that way. And oh yes, you'll also have Uranus in your first house. So that's even more significant. This would be literally impacting you at the personal level, at the soul level, at the physical level. Also watch out for be extra careful with like accidents, to prevent like any potential like accidents, like of like stubbing your toe, things of this sort. This entire transit indicates that this summer, and because you have Uranus in the first house, which, you know, first house is a body of your own self, this could mean like literally getting hurt if you're not paying attention. So I don't want to like make you feel scared or anything, but just pay attention to your surroundings. Anyway, so if you'll hear any astrologer talk about this transit in a similar way as like an accident prone time. So not a good time to like get surgery, things of this sort this summer, you know, before like August 17th, even wait a little bit longer if you can. But in any case, this is not a medical astrology reading. Let me know if you're interested in that. Okay, anyway, so Fortune's Wheel, yeah, luck and right timing. So the main message with this card and the way that it came up in the context of the reading is, yeah, don't set, if ever things feel unclear or if it feels like you're taking steps back or something, and I have a feeling that if that is happening is because you still have some things to heal, because we have this card at the bottom of the deck, Fools Embrace Transmuting Pain, and we talked about transmuting energies. Maybe it's time to do this for yourself, because maybe you've done it for a lot of other people, but it's time to do this for yourself, to finish any unfinished emotional business that you have so that you can move on in this new clear direction without feeling any sort of disappointment or regret, like basically dealing with those kinds of feelings. And I do feel a heavy kind of energy in my heart chakra, so it's definitely something to do with an emotional pain of the past that is coming up now again for some reason. So if at any point it feels like you're sort of moving backwards in your process of healing, know that that is totally normal, and that even, you know, when you think you've dealt with something completely, like thoroughly cleanse that aspect, if it comes up again, it's probably for a reason, so that you understand something even higher and deeper about it, and you would be very good at understanding the higher, the bigger picture of that. So it's not coming up to torture you, and it's not coming up to put any wrenches in your plans or to delay this journey. So there are really no delays on this journey. It's all leading you in the right direction is mainly the message here with this card. Okay, so yeah, deep potential for partnership. Your Mars or Mars, transiting Mars in Aries, so in its rulership, very nice, is also in the 7th house. So that further indicates this person being a masculine presence, and being like, or this could be someone in your life who is already of this energy, who, like, there are themes coming up with this. So yeah, let me know if you want any insight on a relationship that's very significant to you right now. I do have synastry readings in my shop. I also can do, of course, love readings with just tarot, but it's always interesting to look at the astrology between you and someone with whom you have a really significant connection. So anyway, at the bottom of the deck here, this other one that indicates purpose, I pulled like from 4 decks that indicate your purpose in this year. We have peace. So I am a being of love and I release all negative energy. So basically, like, either transforming your relationships to go with you in this new direction, so that they don't bring any drama in your life that's unwarranted, or basically moving away from those people who are not, you know, who are causing you, like, basically to have feelings of like your soul not being at rest for some reason. That's what I want to feel with this card here. Okay, so last part of the reading, actually, I want to see if, is there anything else in the actual sort of solar return chart that is significant? Yeah, there might be a necessity to put, like, your business on hold, or something about your job that came up before, right? As well, something about your job, or changing your job, or things to do with practical matters and security, in order so that you can devote yourself more deeply to this spiritual thing that you are focusing on right now. Because the South Node signifies what we're getting away from, and that for you falls in the 2nd house, and what we're trying to go towards is the 8th house. So that's where you're being directed literally to your point that is the most important in your chart, which is the 8th house. And wherever your sun hangs out is where you are most comfortable in this life, or where you tend to be, where your sun, which represents the ego and the mind and what you're striving towards, wants you to be, so that you can accomplish your purpose. So you are literally being directed, sometimes forcefully, sometimes via your own intuition, to getting to the place that you need to be in this life that fulfills your highest purpose. And Saturn is in the 5th house for you. That's an important one, because it's going to be squaring a lot of this energy. That means sometimes you might feel like you can't have as much fun as you want, or some sort of restriction, like not being able to be around young people or young children, or some sort of delay, like if you're trying to maybe conceive or something like that, there might be some sort of delay with that, because that's the house of children, and Saturn limits things. In Aquarius, it's gonna have to, yeah, you're gonna feel like you have just so much responsibility on your shoulders, and that might take away from your opportunities to simply have fun, or like, you know, to hang out with friends in this way. But you can make that choice to set that time aside for yourself, so you can do that. Okay, so I think that's mostly it about the solar return chart. And now I can pull some final cards for any other advice that wants to come up. So let's, oh, and we do have this one here that I forgot to read. So let's get into that with this overall message here. So it says no rain today. 37. Comfort, positive view of life, energy, shine. In this card, we see the sun banishing a crying cloud. Oh, how nice. There will be no rain today. The sun gives warmth and comfort. Her rays grant life and strength. They chase away grief and loss. Or dark days, turn your face towards the sun and let the shadows fall behind you. Or on dark days, rather. Slip on your dancing shoes, if only for a moment, and let the energy move through your body. Surround yourself with positive, happy people to foster an environment where you can shine. Yeah, so that's, I think, a really useful message here. Especially at these times that are so 8th house oriented in life, it's probably the most important to have like lots of, or just a lot of lighthearted people or positive energy around us, so that we don't feel like everything is, that like there's so much at stake and like everything is heavy and difficult and harsh. Yeah, so sometimes literally when you're in the throes of the most significant spiritual kind of work in your life, that's probably the time when you need the most like comfort and nourishment around you. And as I say that, we got the full moon in Taurus, detoxify, which you have the moon in Taurus, which signifies that you're very capable of nurturing others. Again, we talked a lot about your moon, but you also really need to feel comfortable in your environment yourself. You want to be around nice things, like luxurious things, things that smell nice. You like eating really good food, maybe doing some sort of like I don't know, redrawing up your diet so that you're eating just wholer food, more whole foods, more nourishing foods also. And then we got the moon in Capricorn, leave the past behind. Wow, we already got that. That's the present. Oh, and more earth energy. And then that's for the future, step up and lead. So new moon in Capricorn. And at the bottom we have full moon in Leo, go wild. So a lot of this prideful, like, I mean, in a positive, intelligent sort of way, Leo energy about embracing your true energy and leaving behind anyone who doesn't understand it, who is keen on misunderstanding it, or who doesn't want you to be able to do that. Also, the full moon Leo season might be very significant for you. Already we talked about the Uranus transit happening there. This last Capricorn full moon, early July, like when was it? The 16th? No, 13th? Gosh, I forgot already. It's like, it's been wiped from my memory. Goodbye. Might have also been significant for you. And Scorpio season might also be significant, because that's when the full moon in Taurus is going to be around, I think it's like the 22nd or something like that, but I would double check that. So yeah, like audacity, boldness, and having enough courage to move in this new direction, to be this leader that you want to be this person who is seen for their true self, for their true purpose, which aligns to their work, which aligns to their legacy, and aligns to the way that they communicate with and share energy with others. And, you know, also a weird message, not doing any of this, not embracing and allowing this feeling of like being pressured into change or into like tunnel vision for movement because of some sort of desire for like revenge or for showing others who have hurt you in the past like what they're missing, things of this sort. Not good. Just direct that energy fully into what makes you happy, what really aligns with your passions, because you've already won when you do that. So literally just leave those things that are unsolvable, those things or connections or situations that still hurt you even when you think about them after you've thought you healed that situation. Those people do not deserve you. If they weren't also able to step up to the table and meet you halfway in that process of healing or of making amends or things like that, if they still haven't done it after all this time and you're still the one who is worrying about it or having anxiety or feeling sad about it, they're just literally at this point not worth it. And I know it's easier said than done. It's Cancer Sun, I understand, but this is about creating things that are powerful and impactful that literally stem from your soul's passion, not from any other ulterior motive or desire for like overcompensation or sublimation. So leave those negative things behind. So let's see if there's anything else. What is your most significant tool this year? Like energetic tool. Wow, okay, that one. Surrender. Okay, so we already sort of saw that. So whenever anything still feels like you're trying to work through 1,000 kinks or like complications or things that are just confusing elements about it, if you still can't solve it or don't understand or don't know what the answer is, just try to like let it go, like even release it. Do some sort of like journaling sometimes is really nice. Like write to your spirit guides or to your angels or to whatever you feel most connected to. Say like, I surrender this to you. I trust that you have my best interest in mind, and I trust you to take care of this for me, heal this for me, help me figure this out, because I've tried my very best. And I, as someone, you know, with your capability for doing what you want or creating what you need, or you with your amount of determination, once you've tried your best, like, you know you've tried your best. So if you can no longer solve it, then appeal to help. And wow, I say this, and I got this card. So Star Mother, how can you mother yourself? This is absolutely so important for Cancer Sun in the 8th house, Scorpio Ascendant, Taurus Moon. Like that is so significant. How can you turn this nurturing, comforting energy towards yourself this year? This is important. And trust your path. If you knew you would be supported, what would you do? So literally, this is just feel, trust that your guides have your best interest in mind, that they know what you're going through, that they're supporting you. And if you were just so sure of that, and if you could just give them the remaining issues that you still have, that you feel you can't take care of yourself, like what would you actually do if you had that guarantee? So let's get a couple of extra final messages here, and then some mini cards too, because those are always cute. Actually, before we do these, there's a deck that, oh my gosh, if I can get it. Okay. This is a sort of like soul prompt, or just prompt for reflection, or like if you want to think of it as like shadow work or anything like that, or just journaling or any sort of thing that could help you work through some of these things that came up in the reading. What is something useful for you to reflect on or to do? Wow, okay, that one definitely. Okay, how can I be more flexible right now? What are you trying to control? Yep, maybe it's time to let go, surrender, right? Let love move through you today, and trust that the outcome will be for your highest good. And today's soul action, remind yourself all day long that you are safe, that life is happening for you, and that you are not alone. Then do some yoga. Wow, what a perfect sort of message. Exactly what was being said here. And yes, movement. That also came up with the 6th house, like healthy movement, healthy food, things that could sustain you as you are going through such deep self-reflection and reorientation in life overall. So now let's get these. No, it's way too many. Please, just a couple. Oh my gosh, no. Just 2 cards. Jeez. Or maybe 1 card. I think that would be nothing. Okay, we got a couple. Okay, they're like decks piled in very dangerous ways around me right now. So, oh, this one keeps coming up lately for me. I don't know why. To make a prairie, it takes a clover and 1 bee, 1 clover and a bee, and reverie. The reverie alone will do if bees are few. So cute. Emily Dickinson poem here. And then nature always wears the colors of the spirit. Oh, and beautiful cardinals. This might be a nice sign for you that might be coming up sometimes, like as a sort of synchronicity. Let's see if there's anything else here. And yeah, clover. So yeah, basically this process is not going to be one that is fixed or solved overnight. So it's going to take a while. So again, if it feels like like you're taking steps forward and then moving backwards, trust that it's all coming together as it needs to and in the right timing. So yeah, I'm reaching for these decks. Wow, what chaos is around me right now with these thousands of decks. Okay, so anything else that wants to come up for you this year from these fortune cookie cards? Any other area of life that's indicated? Okay, so care required. Guard yourself against deception and be careful of making foolish mistakes at this time. So I think that just basically talks about the creating better boundaries and removing yourself from depleting relationships or situations. And I think I forgot to mention with the Scorpio South Node, it's always about knowing what things are like parasitic or toxic and removing those out of your life. So health, wow, an excellent time to start an exercise program or diet. Many new friendships are on the horizon. Sometimes these messages are mixed, but yeah, health, like literally at the soul level and at the physical level. So what things are depleting you or are parasitic to you right now, basically, and removing those. And one final message here. Okay, that one. Wisteria, longevity. Plan for and take the dedicated path. So I think that's what you're doing. That's what you're trying to do. That's what this year is about. And that's what you're going to be working towards now. So yeah, that's what I see for you in this reading. Let me know if you have any questions. I really love looking into everything here for you. And I wish you the best of luck and energies and positivity this year. And take care of yourself. Make sure that you give yourself enough rest. It's always important with a Mars year, and I hope you have a wonderful year ahead. Thank you so much. Bye.